And Tim Shugrue is here. He's running for district attorney. Tim, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, John. Nice to see you.
It's been 18 years, I think.
Been 18 years. It's a long time.
Since I sat across from you.
That's true.
And it was something. I feel like it was absolutely not only one lifetime ago, probably a few lifetimes, maybe for both of us.
It is. It was. It's been a great 18 years since then, but it was a lot of fun. That was a good campaign. I did well with it, and I thought it was a good campaign. And as it turned out, it was good for David. It was good for me, and it was very professional. And it was no dirty politics. It was just. We got a lot of messages across, and I think a lot of things were accomplished in that. I know he adopted a lot of things that I had addressed in that campaign. So it's nice to be back with you again.
Absolutely. So looking at what we're facing now, and we'll certainly talk about the campaign and what you're running on. But there is a situation in Pittsfield, Miguel Estrella, who was shot and killed by Pittsfield police. And it was a mental health situation. I think everyone agrees to that, although the investigation, of course, is still ongoing. A few years back, there was a gentleman, Daniel Gillis, and in that case, it's kind of eerie almost how similar it was. Mental health situation, man with a knife and shot dead. At that point, there was an internal investigation. The police chief ultimately indicated that there was no fault of the officer, and the district attorney's office at the time said there was no criminal issue. I'm not sure exactly. Responsibility. Yeah. So essentially that just basically was left there, and that was that. So that the only reason I bring that issue up is because it's sort of hindsight, and it's just eerily similar situation. Obviously there is a great public outcry in this particular situation. So I guess my question is, what is the DA's role in this particular case, and knowing that you can't talk about the particulars too much and you don't have all the insight from the investigation, but tell me your thought of what the DA's role is in this.
Sure. I mean, obviously, as you just touched on, is that I'm not privy to the investigation. The Crime Prevention and Prevention Bureau is doing it at the CPAC unit for Massachusetts State Police, and they do a thorough investigation. I think it was important that they did it, and not it wasn't done internally by the Pittsfield Police Department. I think it's good that it's doing that. We need to see what the results of that investigation are. But mental health is a real problem, and we don't have a lot of services in Berkshire County. As being in private practice, I've been a lawyer for 36 years, being in private practice for 28 years. I was a prosecutor before that. It really seen that it's really difficult to get services. And they're good, hardworking mental health workers in Berkshire County. There's just not enough of them. And we have a real mental health problem, and it's at a crisis level that I would consider. And we really have to address that. And the district attorney does have a role with that. How do we assist the police with mental health issues? How do we assist the police with getting social workers to help out and talk people through these situations? Because if we could have just gotten through the situation, perhaps it could have been avoided. We don't know that, but I think it's important to be able to have the resources available for the police. I think it would be important to have body cams. So, I'm a big believer in body cams anyway. I think that you're seeing them being implemented throughout the county in various cities and towns. I would hope that Pittsfield will be able to get them. I know it's cost, but I think it's a necessary cost, because then we'll all see what is happening. This is an awful tragedy. It's just when a young man loses his life, it's just an awful tragedy. So we have to get to the bottom of it. But let's hope that we can make something positive out of this and try to change some things and get mental health to the forefront with the criminal justice system and with law enforcement. So I think that's important. And that's one of the big things that's on my agenda. We deal with addiction. I think there's answers to addiction. I've dealt with that with having represented people with addiction issues in 28 years. And I've been able to get people through the addiction and be able to get people to not reoffend and to be productive members in the community, to get off drugs and to be working in the community. We've been very successful at that. I want to do that in the district attorney's office. But I do think this is a big, big need for mental health. And I'm hoping that I can do that. I pride myself on getting things done. I've been a lawyer a long time. I'm 62 years of age now. I've done a lot of things in this community, including starting the kids' place. When people say you can't get things done in Pittsfield, that's not true. I can get things done. When I do things, I complete them. So I'm hoping I can address that issue, and I hope that we can get to the bottom of this terrible tragedy for everybody that's involved. Yeah. And I just hope that we can keep the peace in the community, and we can make sure that everybody, we can learn from this. We can make this better. and we can't take his life back. It's just very unfortunate. But what we can do is try to address this never, ever happens again. So let's hope we can do that.
And certainly my heart, I'm sure yours, goes out to the family as well. And what they have said is that I think, again, you can't change the past, but you can change what we're doing now moving forward. And there have been some calls for people, asking for the names of the police officers to be released. That and again, I mean, they have every right to ask for that. My concern is that in this case, and I think in the last case, Daniel Gillis, case in point, it was found that there was no fault. So what that tells me is that the protocol is as such that if the police officers are following that protocol and something awful happens, then really, yes, the officers have to be held accountable to some extent. But what is the atmosphere and what is the framework? What is the protocol that allows this to happen and for it ultimately to be, I mean, I'm saying quote unquote, okay, based on what the protocols are. So that comes to what the leadership and what the training is and that sort of thing. So I think it's important to point that out, that it's not just about an officer doing something wrong, because based on their training, it may have been done as they were trained.
Right. That's what we need to know. And again, I'm not privy to the investigation. We all want to know, did they follow proper protocol that's in place? And is that protocol correct? If it's not correct, we're going to change it. And if we need more people to be on staff for mental health, we're going to change that. This has to be addressed. So I agree with the family that we've got to put this in the forefront to address it so it never happens again. But I also don't think we should have hysteria right now. We need to find out what are the facts. Let's see them. And then hopefully we'll have transparency and we'll see what the facts are. So then we can make decisions about what happened. And let's make sure this doesn't happen again. And if it wasn't the individuals that were responsible, we need to look at our system as a whole, not just the officers, not just the police department, but mental health issues across the board. Our system is broken and we see that. And we've got to make sure that we get more help for mental health issues. I find it to be a serious issue in Berkshire County. And I think that we really need to see if we can get services for people that need it. And again, I don't want to take away from the hardworking individuals that are in the field right now because they do a great job, but they just cannot cover the need that we have. It's just tremendous. So let's wait. Let's see the investigation. Let's see what the results of that is, and then we'll make a comments and see what needs to be done. But I think it's important for people to talk about this. Again, it's an awful tragedy, and I hope that all people, all the parties that are involved, are able to get some solace and peace when we find out what happened.
So 62 years old, here you are.
Yeah, here I am.
Deciding that this is the next move for you. Why this time, here in 2022, what was the impetus to decide that it was time to give this a go?
Well, I think I'm really at the pinnacle of my career. I think, as I use the word apex, we're at the top of the mountain. I've done everything I want to do. I really enjoy my practice. I enjoy practicing law. But, I've always done a lot of community work. And, I talked with my wife, and she's got a master's in public administration. So she's run campaigns before and whatnot. And we had a discussion about it. I was receiving so many phone calls. The support I was receiving was tremendous to get into the race. And I was reluctant at first because I was happy where I am. I have a nice business. I'm leaving a very successful business, but I really believe in Berkshire County. I believe in Pittsfield. I moved here in 1973. I've loved the city. I've loved this county. I like getting things done. I think I can really fill a need and a void. And I think I can get things accomplished. And once I made that determination and thought about it, I said, this is a good move for me. It's a good move for Berkshire County. It's something I wanted. It's sort of been a dream to be the district attorney and to be able to take what I've learned with, literally hundreds and hundreds of jury trials and in all cases from murder to rapes to sexual assaults, all sorts of things. And at the same time, having the compassion for individuals. There are criminals who are hardened criminals that we know about, and there are people that get caught up in a bad situation. That's when you need compassion. And so we see good families and good people that sometimes get themselves in some situations that lead to criminal charges. We got to treat them appropriately because they're different. They're different balls of wax. They're completely different. So I think I have that background by doing that much defense work, that much trial work. Really, I'm offering Berkshire County a trial lawyer that has tried all sorts of cases. I don't think there's anybody in Western Mass that's tried more criminal trials than I have, both in prosecution and defense. So I think that between that combination, it's a nice combination to have. I talk about in my platform, I'm talking about the scales of justice. Justice is supposed to be blind. And we don't look at, someone's sexuality. We don't look at their, whether their gender. We don't look at their economic sphere. The lady Justia is, you're supposed to be blind and balance. You balance with criminal prosecution for hardened criminals, and you balance compassion for people that need it. And the DA's office can set policy. I think they need to get back in the schools. I'm a big believer in prevention. I'm a big believer in law enforcement coming back to the district attorney's office. I think there's been a sort of some sort of miscommunication and misconnection between that office and local police and state police and the sheriff's office. I think they need to come back there and need to know. Start with prosecution. We have to start with that first. That's number one. That's your job, is to make sure you get your prosecutions going, and then you work on the other problems and the other issues that are community-based, that are associated with the criminal justice system and associated with law enforcement. And I'm a big believer in bringing our men and women in blue back to the DA's office. I think it's important.
And it's interesting because when you are, and again, 4 years ago, Andrea Harrington ran as a reform candidate. And so the theory is on that, well, you're not necessarily going to make police departments happy all the time in that process. So there's kind of this this push and pull there, but then at the same time, you have to work with police departments.
Absolutely.
And again, there's perception and there's reality. I think the perception there is that maybe the DA's office isn't working well with police departments, and that may very well be true. But I guess for the voter, the question is, what is that happy medium? Like if there's accountability on one side, even in this case in Pittsfield, it may be that the DA has to hold the police accountable to some extent, or be a separate entity looking at it from a different perspective. So tell me about that balance between really working well with the police departments and the sheriff's department, and then understanding that they are separate and have their own particular roles.
Yeah, well, I think if you're at the same table, if they're all working together and there are issues that need to be addressed with law enforcement, and you can address that because you're all talking to each other, because you're in communication with each other, and that there's mutual respect for each other, I think that's very important. Because if we have to make policies or things that aren't being done that we think is correct, we need to talk to the organizations and the agencies that are doing that, and also give them the assistance and the support that they need to get the job done the way that we want it done, which is with compassion at the same time, but also protecting our community, protecting our society. It's about safety. Safety is issue number one. Safety for us, safety for the police, and I think if everybody comes together with that, that's better than having the police not working with the district attorney's office. That's a bad combination. And they need to pull that back in, and they need to be at the table together. Don't have to agree with everything all the time. There's going to be different philosophies, but the district attorney is supposed to be the top law enforcement authority in the county, and to not be connected with your local police and your state police and the sheriff's office, to me, is a problem. I think they have to get together and to be able to address the issues. And you can't address the issues if you're not communicating about what the problems are, because we can fix the problems. If there's a problem, let's talk it out. Let's figure it out, because we're all in this together. We all live in Berkshire County. We all want to be safe, and we want to be compassionate. So it is a balance, and that's what justice is about, balancing. And I think that can be done. I think listen, I've been a defense lawyer for 28 years, and I have a great relationship with the police. I cross-examine them. I put them through some difficult times, and I do that. But at the end of the day, we shake hands, as we all do. Both men and women, we shake our hands at the end and say, you're doing a job, I'm doing a job. And we both learn from that experience. And I think that's important when we work with the police, because I have a lot of support from the police, even though I've cross-examined a lot of these people.
It's interesting because I've seen you in there. I've seen you in cases. I've seen you defend a police officer in a case where the city is looking to prosecute the officer for work. So, you've been there, you've been in that arena. And again, to sort of have this combination, being a prosecutor in the beginning, and then having this and really getting in. I mean, you've been in there's been a lot of cases,
big cases.
You know your way around for sure. So it is an interesting dynamic. And so how has that been with the police, I guess, representatives, unions, police departments? How has that been for you as you're trying to garner support?
Yeah, as you know, and you've probably seen me in action, I'm a pit bull in the courtroom. So I'm all over the place. They'll tell you that. but we do it, and we come out, we smile, and we shake hands. They know they have a job to do. And, every single police officer who cross-examined it come back and said to me afterwards, something, I learned something in that trial, and I won't make that mistake next time. I learned something. I learned something about, breathalyzers, that you can't put something in someone's mouth beforehand. The law is there, but they're not being told or trained enough. And that's a big part of what I want to do is training. So I've had these relationships with police officers over all this time, and I've been difficult on them, and I've cross-examined them, and I've been hard on them. At the end of the day, we shake hands and we walk.
I love the polite language that you use.
I know people have called me a lot worse things than that. You can imagine, but I think I do. I really do. If you were able to attend the event, I know you couldn't with the family issues, but you would see that how much law enforcement was there that are supporting me and my run in the bid for the district attorney's office, because they know I'm fair, they know I'm compassionate, and they know at the same time that I'm tough and in the courtroom, and that I can try cases. I mean, that's really important. You got to be able to try cases. Because when your assistant DAs come up to you and ask you, how do you do this? My daughter's a prosecutor in Salem. She's 5 years out. I talk to her every night. She's in Superior Court now. She's doing sexual assault cases. And she calls me up and says, Dad, this is what I got. And we talk because I like training. I like teaching. And so, it's been in my family. It's been in my blood. My daughter. So going back to why I want to be district attorney, it's been in my blood my whole life. I spent the first 8.5 years doing rape cases. I was 26 years old. I tried my first rape trial in Springfield Superior Court. So I didn't go to district court. I went right to Superior Court, and I did rape trials and sexual assault trials. I saw so many horrors in Springfield that you could not even imagine. 8.5 years was enough for me at that time. So I needed to get out of that and do a break. And then I started doing defense work, and I loved it because I like people. I know so many people in this county, but helping so many people out the last 28 years. But I see at this stage in my life now that I've reached the top, and I want to share it with the community, and I want to come in. I want to build something. I want to build the best law office in Western Mass. I want to build a good district attorney's office. I want to build a good relationship with the local police and with the state police and with the sheriff's office. I want to build it with the community. I want to build it with the programs. Like I said, doing the kids' place taught me a lot. And that's 27 years old now. And WTBR still on the air. 45 years old. I was there when we went FM, October 1st, 1977. I hate to tell people that, but
we were chatting about that. It's funny because ran into Bob Cooper a few years back, and then we brought him on the Facebook show. But I think those things that people do that sometimes are the volunteer things,
right?
Those are the elements that really build community. When you're volunteering for WTBR, you're not getting rich or anything like that, but those are the little things that just add flavor. And then in your case, for the kids' place, it's a very innovative organization.
Yes.
And I think our history in Berkshire County has shown that child abuse and how that is dealt with from a law enforcement thing. It's a long and checkered past.
That's right.
As far as that goes. So I think the creation of the kids' place really maybe marked a time when we really started to get it right.
Absolutely.
To some extent, and of course you should agree. I'm sure you'd agree with that. Since I think legitimately, it has been a model. It's been a model.
So everybody understands. First, I want to go back to Bob Cooper because there's people like him that really were so wonderful that taught us. We had a radio station. I'm in high school. I wasn't an orator. I became an orator because of Bob Cooper. I learned how to run a nonprofit because of Bob Cooper. I learned how to raise funds to put that tower on top of that roof. And we were proud of that. And he taught me so much. And that was in high school. And so here it was. I took those same principles that he taught me. And when I was just starting the kids' place with Detective Joe Collias, he had an organization called Citizens Against Child Abuse. So he was a detective at Pittsfield Police Department. I came on board. We tried a bunch of cases because they were backed up bad for child abuse cases in Berkshire County when I came here in 1991. And I love Jerry Downing. He brought me up from Springfield. And so he was a great DA to have. And he allowed me to do the things I want to do. And he allowed me to do the kids' place. So we prosecuted a bunch of big cases to show that we were serious. We got one of the first cases ever nationally for a horrible, horrible human being that abused children and dogs and animals really badly. He got a 72 to 108 years. And that it sent shockwaves throughout the country. It was the largest sentence at the time. But we took those tragedies and what was happening, and we decided, I said, listen, Joe, I've been to Huntsville, Alabama. I've seen the National Center for Children's Advocacy Center. There were none in New England. There were 225 in the United States at that time. I didn't invent this. I implemented what they had done, and I joined their organization, And I used the skills that they had and the skills I learned from being in high school at the county with W.T. Bear with Bob Cooper. I used those skills, and we were able to. We started in 1993. By 1995, we were incorporated. We were raising money. We hired a couple of grant writers. Those grant writers ballooned us into something bigger. And then when the building, the old Red Cross building on Wendell Avenue, came available, we took a risk. It was probably a risk that I don't know if I do it today, but we decided we got someone that was an anonymous donor that would back us for $140,000 as long as we guaranteed the loan to be paid off in 5 years. So I had to sign a guarantee myself, and actually it was Paul Parachi, who became a judge in juvenile court. Him and I both signed the guarantee. So if it doesn't get refurbished and whatnot, and it could only be sold as a nonprofit because we were keeping it that way. So we took a risk. And we were able to, luckily at the time, the GE Elephants did such a wonderful job for us. And if people remember, if you Google it on the Eagle, you'll see the stories of Shugrue's crew. We all had hats out there. And we came in and with the help of so many people in the county, I mean, so many, from Stevens Carpets to Tierney's Construction, we refurbished that building really mostly in one day and a little bit more in the next couple of days after that. We got that thing done. And it's been open. We hired Jennifer Tierney Stokes as the executive director, who was another excellent person that dealt with child abuse. And the whole idea of the kids' place was to reduce the trauma to children, because I had done it now for 8.5 years. And it was really difficult to have kids go to one interview. They go to see, at that time it was DSS, now it's DCF. They would go and they would have to be interviewed by them, interviewed by the police. And the police officers were not forensically trained to do the interviews. Now we have forensic interviews that are trained, which gets rid of false accusations as much as it gets
which is so easy.
It's so easy
with kids.
Absolutely.
And I think, and again, our history has shown that doesn't always work for justice. I'll say that lightly. So having that, so that makes a huge difference to reduce that amount of, and to be honest with you, trauma, because I mean, even the idea of having to go to a person in power and tell your story can be certainly the whole thing is traumatic for a child.
Very traumatic. And when I used to teach, and I taught for the National College of District Attorneys Association for many years, and I taught in every different state, I would pull a chair, maybe 300-400 people in the crowd. I pull a chair up there. I said, imagine me asking you about a sexual experience. Now imagine that it's a colleague or it's a caregiver. And you have to say that to all these people, to 12 jurors, to a child. That's a lot. So we were trying to ease that. They still have to testify, but we eased the process. And what I was really seeing was lack of services in mental health. That's changed. They have services at the kids' place. They get counseling. They get treated. Now, and same thing with getting medical treatment. We made sure they get medical treatment. So they were seen. One time I prosecuted an individual that had raped an infant. If we didn't respond the way we did, that injury was healed within 48 hours. Because of the multi-team approach, all of us working together, we were able to prosecute that individual and put him in prison for 27 to 35 years. Those are the people we're talking about that are hardened criminals that we need to keep our children safe. I've always said that 40% of our population are children, but they're 100% of our future. It's been my tagline since I started doing this many, many years ago. And I devised it in a way that, and many people were now involved in it. Joe and I started, and we brought many, many people on. Fran Marinello came on, Lance LaPointe. We had people from, at that time was the Breen Center, which was Berkshire Mental Health. We brought all those people in, and it grew and grew, and we organized, and we got the thing off the ground. And I made it so that after 10 years, you'd have to get off, so that we get fresh blood coming in there. Because I've learned it can't be individual specific. If it's individual specific, that person goes.
We could do that in some other areas as well. Right. Maybe a good policy.
I think it's a great policy because it gets new blood in, and the program doesn't end if the person leaves. And that was important. So here it's been 27 years, and I stayed involved with it for many years after, with the golf tournaments and stuff because the local law enforcement agencies raised 20 grand a year for us. And that was all law enforcement in Berkshire County. I think that's why I still have such a good relationship with them as well, is because they came together for my charity every year. I shouldn't say my charity, our charity for the county. I made that so county based, because people didn't realize we had an, I don't know if they still use it, we had the Hassan School, and we had another facility down in Great Barrington. So we had that multi-team approach everywhere, and that was done. It was not an easy task to do, but I accomplished it. And it was accomplished after I left the DA's office, because I still saw the need. And then people ask me then, why are you doing it? You're not a prosecutor anymore. It's because I live here, and I care about children, and I care about our community. And that's why I did it. And I stuck through with it. And it again, it's been a gem for Berkshire County. And when I started this, I heard the same thing: no mall, no bypass. If you grew up here, you know all those things that Didn't happen. And so, but I told people I would get it done, and we did.
Yeah. And in those areas, your area of expertise, doing the best that you can based on what your expertise is in. 4 years ago, cash bail was a big conversation. Now, on the other side of things, it's kind of gone to these dangerousness hearings. And so now the progressives have been, to use the term, the more liberal side of the Democratic folks in the Berkshires have been critical now of the overuse of the dangerousness hearings. What is your take on that? If there's a balance, or what would the policy be from your perspective on this cash bail versus dangerousness hearing?
I can tell you, I have a lot of thoughts on it because again, doing defense work while this approach was taken, I think unfortunately limiting cash bail really, and then using a dangerousness hearing in its stead, someone could be held for 120 days without right to bail. They have no way to get out. And I'd be like, that's not fair. If you're saying they're dangerous, if they are dangerous and need to be held, that's one thing. But you use it instead of bail, I think that's just this. I really have a real problem with that. I mean, why not give someone cash bail that they can make? Because people, I go up to, when I did it, I go up to the office. He's got $2,000. Can he post that bail? That means he's not going to go anywhere. He or she, I should say, but not go anywhere. And so they post the $2,000, and everybody's got accountability to it. And the person was not held, but just to hold them without right to bail and use that instead of saying cash bail. Cash bail can be used appropriately, but there should never be a policy on that anyway. It's like anybody. We're subjective. Every human's different. Everybody's got different DNA. You must look at the cases differently. And that comes back to the training. Train your prosecutors so they know what cases should be cash bail, what cases should not be cash bail, and be reasonable. If someone comes in, we got $5,000 that he can post for bail. I know this is bad. And he or she has a history of taking off and leaving, because that's what bail's for. Be assurance that you're going to show up to court and to make sure that you're not going to commit another crime. Usually, if you think they're going to commit another crime, then you go for the dangerousness hearing. But if it's only to assure their appearance is in there, then you'll work with them. What incentive can we do to make sure that they're going to come back? And there are so many which ways to do that. There are ways that you can do GPS devices. You can do you can put the units on for the intoxilizers. There's things that you can do that an alternative to bail, but are still bail conditions, so that you're making the community safe and making people accountable while they're out and the case is pending. So I think what happened was the pendulum switched too far. And what happened was we're getting people held for 120 days. I had someone held on, it wasn't my case at first, but they hired me afterwards. And she was held for 120 days for an OUI that I later beat. So she wasn't guilty. And so she was in jail for 120 days.
If you take bail completely out of the equation, then the dangerousness becomes the only tool.
Right.
And then it becomes used. The volume is just huge compared to tiny percentage of cases, perhaps, where dangerousness was being used.
That's
before.
true.
So it's an interesting dynamic that in trying to be more fair, in a lot of ways, you're actually holding more people who really shouldn't be held because there's no bail, or at least that's how it seems.
It is that way. Like I said, when you're holding someone for an OUI and a young person, it's granted maybe a second OUI. The first one was probably a year or so before that. Again, I didn't represent her at the time. I represented after, and the case was ultimately dismissed. But the fact of the matter, she was in jail for 120 days, and I don't think that should have happened. This is not a person that should have been incarcerated. And it was used for dangerousness rather than a cash bail, or rather than let's give her a scram unit, which is you take everywhere and you blow into it. It's an intoxilizer machine that they can tell if they're drinking or not. Those are being used all the time. Utilize your probation office and make sure you have a relationship, just like you do with law enforcement. You should make sure you have a relationship with the probation department as well, because they're a law enforcement agency as well. And that needs to come back to the DA's office. So they're checking in with probation to see, is this what should happen? And they'll tell you whether they're the greatest resource. If you've had them on probation before, are they going to show up? Are they going to take off? Are they going to commit a new offense? What's their addiction issue? What's the problems that are going on? Use those resources, because they do an intake with everybody that's there. So there's a lot of things to be done, but you have to be in court to see that. You have to be a trial lawyer to see that. And you can't have that really separation of not being in the courtroom to understand that. And even if I'm not trying cases, I'm going to be in that courtroom a lot. They want to make sure those relationships are good. I want to make sure the relationships are good with the judges, with the probation department, and with the clerk's office, with everybody, because that's an important component. And I think that the office has a responsibility and a duty to the community to reach out to everybody and give the services that are available to us. And that's when I come back to good litigators. Let your ADAs be able to make these decisions on their own without having to keep coming back and finding out, do we have to go get someone's permission? Hire good people or train them, because there are a lot of good people that are there that just haven't had the training yet. Young lawyers are coming out. We're not taught how to try trials in law school. You learn on the field. And I think they should use the National College of District Attorneys Association a little bit better. Like I said, I used to teach for them. I used to teach openings. I used to teach closings. So, and they put me there to do that. And I would travel around the country and went to all sorts of states, Oklahoma, Nebraska, you name it. I've been out there and teaching state associations about how to try great cases. So I think it's important.
Yeah. And so looking back, I think one of the issues, at least right now, that will be talked about is the quote unquote politics, the concept of politics. And of course, going 4 years ago, it was a hell of a race. But it was also a race where it was a district attorney who stepped aside early.
Right.
And then Mr. Cahiavello stepped in and so forth. There's a lot of controversy there. So there could be an argument that was made that the politics was on all sides 4 years ago.
Sure.
But with that said, the outcome led to an office that has been very much criticized, and individuals who did leave that office being critical, even calling it a political culture. So I know this is a slam dunk for you to answer the question. You're like, yep, bring it on. But that's been there. So about the nature of an office, of the district attorney's office, and that atmosphere and that culture. Tell me about what that would look like under a district attorney. Shugrue.
I really don't think politics should be involved in the DA's race. I mean, I don't think it should be involved in the office. I think it should not be a political office. This is about prosecuting crimes, setting up programs that for prevention, helping the police prevent crimes. I think it's important to get these programs back in the schools that have been removed from the schools. I think those are really good. I know that those agencies have done such a great job in stopping young people from drinking and driving. I think we should get them back into that. I don't think politics should be involved. I think it should be, we should work real hard as a community together to make our community safer, to make our community, not just safe, but also accountable for the criminals, so that we're prosecuting the right people we do, but at the same time, having compassion for other people, use the programs that we have. This is, I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying in Berkshire County. I'm staying here the rest of my life. It's not a political position for me. I'm offering the services of someone that's a good trial lawyer, that's done this for 36 years, and says this would be a great situation for all of us, where I can help. And if I have to try the cases, I could try the cases. If I have to answer questions about trying cases, I can do those. So there's lots of things that I can do. It doesn't have to be political. And I think that's where it needs to be taken out. I don't believe that you should be running for the next reelection while you're trying to prosecute cases. I'm hoping to focus on the issues that are here, which are the issues that we need to deal with in the community, which we've already somewhat touched on. I don't think it should be political. And I would hope that in my administration, there wouldn't be that type of politics. I don't want to see that. Again, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere else. I have no agenda to go to Boston or to Washington, D.C. or anything else like that. I'm a Berkshire County resident. I'm a Pittsfield resident. And I want to be able to bring my experience and my litigation experience to the public and make this, like I said earlier, a great law office.
Are there any areas that over the last few years that you would maintain? In other words, I think there's been some work done on diversion programs and that sort of thing. Any areas that you would continue that have shown promise?
Yeah, anything that's shown promise that's successful, of course, we're going to keep it. I mean, I'm a believer, again, in the programs that I have done are not ones that I invented. And I'm sure that these have come from other programs as well. If they're successful and they're working, I want to continue to do them. I mean, I certainly do believe, I do think that we don't use the diversion program in the district court enough, what we should be using, which is that chapter 276, section 87, which is people don't get a conviction. People don't realize that this is a pretrial diversion program that you still can be held responsible and put on probation. So you got to stay drug free, drug clean, get a job, and certain other things that have to happen. And you have that in a diversion program. At the end, if you do the things you're supposed to do, there's no conviction. Case is cleared, and you end up having dismissal, and they have no criminal record. I think we need more of that so that we deal with people that have it. But at the same time, the criminals that are they're breaking the law and doing things, gun violence is atrocious.
Mm-hmm.
We need to address those issues, and we need to prosecute those people to the fullest extent of the law. And we need the best lawyers in that office to handle that, and not just be up against good defense lawyers and having inexperienced prosecutors. That's a big problem right now.
Yeah, there has been, and again, there's perception and then there's reality, and maybe they're not exactly the same thing, but there's been a perception for a long time that, someone is arrested, maybe it's gun violence, maybe it's something violent. And then the word is, but then these judges, they let them off, that sort of, and you've heard this
I've heard it all the time.
a zillion times, right? So it's there. And again, this is where you have the conversation to understand what the situation actually may be, but certainly the perception is there and has been there for a long time. So just tell me your thoughts on that, with this idea of, these lenient judges is they just let them go.
Well, some of the problems is like doing the dangerousness hearing and then saying someone's dangerous and then saying, okay, we can put them on conditions. And then the judge gets blamed later on. That was the district attorney's office that made that decision to do that. So I don't think it's fair to put it on the judges. Superior Court's a little bit easier because sentences, we have guidelines. So we follow the judges, follow the guidelines. We sort of follow the guidelines. So there's sentencing guidelines. So it's uniform across the state. So we're not everybody's being treated differently. So there are guidelines, and everything is subjective as well. So I think the responsibility still starts with the DA's office, and to show the judges what the cases are all about. Because if a judge sees how atrocious some of these cases are, and it's highlighted and it's presented correctly to he or she, then I think you'll see the sentences come on down. But it takes all parties working together. And I just don't see that cohesiveness going on right now. If we can get that back, I think people will be happy with the decisions the judges are making. Because, what people don't realize, they go to trainings all the time. They are up on the law and they're good with it. I think that the DA's office should be doing similar trainings and I know they do some, but I see that there's still a lot of young people coming in there that aren't trained yet. And there's a lot of good lawyers that just need just a little bit of training. That's all. And I think that can happen. And I think the more you present your case in a definitive light, and the more you present it, just as I did as a defense lawyer, the more you present a case, then you convince a judge, this is what should happen. That's your job. If a judge doesn't give a good sentence or releases somebody else, you haven't done your job, because you should be doing your job and explain to him or her why this person should be held or why this person shouldn't be let go. But if you don't do that, again, it comes down to training. Then a judge, of course, he or she's going to do that because they don't have the necessary information. But if they really find out someone, it's all about being prepared. Everything, when a good trial lawyer, we're not any smarter than anybody else. We're not any different. We're just prepared. We spend a lot of time in it. It's all about preparation. Nothing in life, if you want to do a good job, nothing comes easy. You've got to work for it. You got to really do your homework, do your research, and go out and if you don't know the answer, find the answer. So I want people to do that. I mean, that's what I enjoy with my daughter. Every day she calls me back. There's questions no matter what. And she's a well-trained, good litigator, but she still asks me questions all the time. And sometimes I have to say, you know what? I got to look that up. It's a good question. I have Westlaw. They have Westlaw. Lexis, Nexus, whatever you have, whatever legal system you have, use it. And then I faithfully read the Lawyers Weekly every Monday morning, and I circle the cases that are important, and I don't forget them, and I have them. And I get people calling me up all the time. Tim, what was that case that I saw you talk about in court? See, I read those cases and you put it out there. Preparation. It's not rocket science, but it's a lot of work and it's preparation. And, I like it. I'm in love with the law. I enjoy it. And so this is fun for me right now because this is where I want to be. I want to talk about the issues that I think are important. And I think I can do that. Win, lose, or draw. I want to bring the issues out there. I'm a good lawyer and I want to talk about it. And a lot of it's about preparation. And everybody will tell you, I come into that courtroom, I'm prepared every single time. So that's what it's all about.
And I think it's fair to say that your criticism of the incumbent is measured.
Yes. I don't
You
take
know,
personal. I'm not going after anybody personal.
there's you know, another candidate who's running, who's going to be in the general election, who's less measured
Yeah.
as far as that goes. You know, looking at that. But how do you see the sort of tenor of this race, of this campaign? It seems to me already it's much more cordial than it was 4 years ago. And I think many of us, I mean, I was involved in it 4 years ago, and many of us can sort of take responsibility for some of that for sure. It was very emotional. It was a hot race. I can see this race as, I think, more measured.
I think so. I think that we lost a little bit of civility along the way, and that may have been where the country was at the time. But we did lose a lot of civility. I think civility is very, very important. I haven't attacked the incumbent in there. I talked about the difference between my experience and her experience. I'm not doing anything personal. I want to talk about, why I think that I can offer a lot to Berkshire County. I'm not here to bash anybody individually. That's not my role. I believe in civility. I believe in the respect of a courtroom, and I believe in the respect of judges. And like I said, when I talk about the police officers, we shake hands at the end of it because I gave them respect, even though I may be tough and I cross-examine, getting some tough questions they can't answer. I may yell at them on occasion, but when we're done, we get out and we shake hands. That's civility. And I want this campaign to be civil. It may not be if people decide they want to go that way. I'm prepared if they want to do that. I don't want to do that. I think that it's a disservice to the county to be doing that, to be talking about things personally. I think what's important is we talk about the issues, and what our positions are different. We have different positions. There's no question. I think I come with a little bit different. And maybe because I'm more mature in my age, being where I am. But I think even when we ran in 2004, we ran a civil campaign and brought issues out that I'm still proud of to this day. And I think David is too. We could shake hands, and when I haven't seen him in probably 10 years, but I could say that we never. We tried cases against each other. We tried cases with each other. And at the end of the day, it was civil. And even when I became a defense lawyer, everybody's like, how are you going to do that? You were a prosecutor. And I have the same way. Well, I did that. I turned around and I was here. It was one time I'm trying to murder with David. Next, 2 months later, I'm trying a case against him. And at the end of the day, we did our cases, shook hands, and went out. We tried an awful sawed-off shotgun case on Wacona Street, and I ended up winning it. And David was just as cordial to me. It wasn't an issue, but it was about the facts, it was about the law, and we did that. That's what this should be all about. It should be about civility again, and our county needs that. There's too much hatred in this world. During this last 2 years of COVID, people were locked up, and we saw we never closed. We worked all the way through it because there was a need. People were they were in a lot of pain. People were and they're still in a lot of pain. And I want to see if we can alleviate that pain. And as leaders, we should be showing that by example. We should be showing not to be not non-civil, to be civil to each other, and to be respectful to each other, and to talk about the issues of what they are. And at the end of the day, if the voters decide they want me, I'm here for you. If they decide they want somebody else, I respect that. But in the interim period of time, we have to show respect to one another, to respect to our humans, to our neighbors. I think everything starts at home. You start at home, and love yourself, love your family, and bring it out. Love your community. I love my community. I really do. I love Berkshire County. I love Pittsfield. I love everything about the Berkshires. We've got the Colonial Theater. We've got Mount Greylock, and we've got Clark Art, and we got Mass Mocha. Down south, we got the beautiful thing, the Mahawi. And there's so many great facilities, Jacob's Pillow, all this stuff that we have available to us. Let's focus on those things and about the good community. Let's make it safe for everybody so we can all feel good. I mean, I don't know if you were here, but I grew up in the 70s. North Street was a huge thing. It was where everybody went, and we all loved each other and shook hands. It was just different. And you don't see that now. Everybody's kind of afraid. And, maybe it's because of the mask and because of COVID. I don't know. But I want to change that. I'm hoping we can come back and we can all, respect and, and I say that even when we do, cases in the probate and family court, we come in there and said, we all have to have mutual respect for each other. We have different positions. We lay those positions out in front of a judge. At the end of the day, we leave there and we're civil. I want to bring that to the table. I hope that happens.
And I can't believe I never brought you into WTBR back in the day. I look at that.
I don't think anybody really knows that much because I never promote. I don't promote a lot of things about the kids' place, but I never promote about that. But yeah, I still love it, and I still listen to it. I still listen to the local radio. It's just something that because that's the heartbeat of your community. local radio means so much. How do you get to know anything without, between, 8 and 10 o'clock in the morning, getting a little bit of information what's happening in your community. We have it in our office all the time, all different stations, so we can listen to what's happening, so I think it's important.
It is. And but there was something special about that little station in the bowels of Taconic High School.
Oh, we started in the library. We're at the library.
That's
so
right.
you want to talk about doing weird?
That's right.
We're the 70s. We're playing some rock and roll. We're in the library. We used to do all my shows in those days. It's a long time ago.
It's good stuff. So,
Yeah.
Tim, I really appreciate the time. How can people learn more about your campaign? And gosh, there's so much. I mean, we probably covered, I don't know, a quarter of what we could have, but I definitely want to respect your time. But, how can people learn more about your campaign? And your wife is working in this campaign. She is a pivotal role in this as well.
She does. She ran my campaign in 2004, as you might remember. She's got a master's degree in this. She's run campaigns for mayors of Springfield and for and in Chicopee for state reps. And we're very close because she works with me every day. She's run my business. She's run, nearly a $500,000 business per year. She's been running that for the last 20 years. So that's why we had this conversation about she thought it was important that I do this. She said, this will make you really happy. I think this is going to make the community really happy. And she said, it's going to be a sacrifice for us. We're not gonna be able to do the things that we normally would do when we had a little bit more freedom, because this needs a lot of work in the first few years to straighten this out. So how you can get in touch with us? We have a website. We came up yesterday afternoon. As a matter of fact, it's Timothy J. Shugrue for District Attorney, and so you can just Google it and you can find that. We also do have a Facebook page, which is Attorney Timothy J. Shugrue for District Attorney, and we have on that sign up sheets to do whatever you want to do. We have a big committee and we've got a lot of people working on it. And additionally to that, we have a Venmo account established on there up to $50. We also have the Act Blue account. You can do $10 up to $1,000. So we're already receiving substantial funds from that. We are going to have more fundraisers. We had our campaign kickoff last week and we had 319 people. It was a great showing. In fact, I think we would have had more if we had more parking. We kind of ran out of parking, but we also raised over $15,000. And I think our accounts will be, by the time I make the deposits. It's very cumbersome in the political finance campaign committees to identify every single one of these $50 payments. Right. So once we get that set and done, I think we're gonna have over $40,000. We hope to have $80,000 by a couple of months. So, and
it's important to get those numbers, because when you go into the campaign, you kind of fill from election day and budget from back there, and those postcards and all those things.
Yeah, they cost money.
They cost money.
They do
cost money, and campaigns cost a lot of money to get that message out.
Really, and right now you'll see people out. I have a lot of people out there collecting our signatures. We've got a lot of signatures already, but I like getting that message out by getting signatures, because even if we get 2,000 instead of 1,000, I want that many so that people will know that we're out and we're about. And we've been busy on this already. I've been to the Rotary auction last week. Spent a lot of money there. But I go to these things whether it was the campaign or not, and we didn't campaign that night, but we went and I just shook everybody's hands, and the response I'm getting is really incredibly supportive, and I'm happy about that. And people seem to embrace the idea of this type of a campaign, and I hope that we all respect each other and we do a civil campaign.
Yeah. And I've interviewed a lot of candidates in the past, and you can tell the ones who are having fun and really love it, and some that maybe aren't having as much fun, but clearly you're in the former. In that case, you can tell. So this is fun for you, and you have fun when you're doing something that you love.
Absolutely.
So I don't think that's that's an objective statement, because it's just what I see. So I think you're going to have a fun campaign, and I absolutely wish you the best, Tim.
Thank you, and it's been great, John. It's been a long time, but it's been great to see you again. You don't look anything different, but
see you soon.
Thank you.